Hey guys, it's Charlene. Today I'm sharing with you the brand new Craft Your Life project kit from Altenew, and I'm going to show you how to make 2 cards with this kit. Now this kit is different from most kits in that the whole point of this kit is to make your life easier. Now you can see these 2 gorgeous cards that I made. I'm going to show you how I made them with the kit. But first, let me give you a quick overview of what's included so you know where we're going with things. It comes with that beautiful large floral stamp, and here's the packaging. I love the Altenew packaging. Gives you lots of ideas as well as color combinations. And here's where this kit gets really exciting. Look at that die. You can use that die to cut out all of those images on the large stamp. There are also layering stencils, which is going to make coloring that large stamp so easy. And then there's this beautiful embossing folder. These kits just give you a ton of different options, and you're going to be really surprised by how easy it is to create a ton of beautiful colored die cuts. You can make so many different kinds of cards. So I've got the large stamp here. I'm stamping it out with some black hybrid ink because at this point I wasn't sure if I wanted to watercolor or if I wanted to ink blend, what I wanted to do. Ultimately, I decided to show you guys 2 different ways of using the stencils. I'm using a small blending brush here, and that's going to make it really easy for me to put a lot of different individual colors all over on the card. So there are several different kinds of leaves on this pattern, and I'm going to make each of them a different color. I'm starting out here with Tidepool, and I did all of those small leaves in that color. And now I'm coming in with Juniper, and I'm going to color these kind of little clover looking leaves with the color Juniper. My goal here is to get a lot of different greens on this background because it's going to make the card more interesting when we're done. For these small leaves with the single line, I'm going to come in with some Sprout. For these small areas, that small blending brush is very helpful because I don't have to worry about taping off or blocking any of the images. I can just go in and color in the exact areas that I want to color things. So I use the Sprout as well for the larger leaf images that also have a single line in them. And now I'm coming in with some Avocado, and I'm going to use that on the leaves that have multiple lines or veins in them. Now you certainly do not have to color all of the leaves different colors. This would also look beautiful if the leaves were all the same color, or if you maybe did kind of an ombre effect from left to right in intensity. You have lots of different options here. This is just one way of doing things. You could change up the look of this stamp in lots of different ways. Now I'm using some parsley, and I'm using that on the flower stems and leaves, and those are for the larger flowers. Here is the reveal on that. So there are all of those gorgeous leaves, and now I can come in and color all of my flowers. Now, just like with the leaves, I'm going to use a lot of different colors here. I really want my background to be vibrant and have lots of interest to it. For these large flowers, I am using the color Lilac. And I'm coming in pretty soft with my inks because even though I want it to be dynamic and have a lot of different colors, this background overall is going to be a pretty soft and feminine background. So once I have the larger flowers done, then I can come in here with some pink lemonade, which, if you don't know, is one of my favorite colors. It is just a really nice, pretty pink color. I love how it looks. And once I get those flowers done with the pink lemonade, I'm going to come in with some Nectar, which is more of a peachy pink color, to color some of the other flowers in the set. If you've never used layering stencils before, they are super easy to use. You just line them up so that you can see the black edges of all of the images through the stencil, and then you can go in and color. For mine, I am just using a piece of low-tack tape across the top to hold the stencil and the paper down on my glass mat. You also could do that with magnets, or if you wanted to use pixie spray or some other type of removable spray, you could do that as well. For the last set of flowers there, I brought in some Sorbet, and everything just looks gorgeous. This final stencil here fills in all of the small circles on the stamp set, and it also fills in all of the centers of the flowers. I really like to use some type of texture paste or glitter for this layer of stencils. I think it adds a lot. So I'm going to show you two different types of mixed media you could do with this background so you can see kind of what the difference is. Here I am using some Arctic Fox Paper Glaze Luxe. It is a thicker kind of paste. You put it on, you allow it to set and dry, and then it has a nice shimmer and glittery finish, but it is opaque. For the second version of this stamp, I'm going to come in here. I'm using my paper Pouncers, and because I am working in small spaces, I am holding on to the foam sponge part to kind of smush it down to take up smaller spaces so I can manipulate it around all of the other images. You're going to see I'm also going to come in with just a piece of scratch paper here in a little bit, and that is going to help me to ensure I'm not hitting spots that I don't want to. I started with Fig for my purple color, which is a nice vibrant purple. Next, I've brought in some Grapefruit, which is a beautiful color. And after the Grapefruit, I'm going to come in with Sweet Pea, and Sweet Pea is this really vibrant pink. It's very, very pretty. Lastly, for the flowers, I'm coming in with some Honeysuckle, also a gorgeous pink color. So lots of varied shades of pinks and purples on this background. You'll notice that I'm actually using a piece of low-tack tape to kind of mask off the areas I don't want to hit with my pouncer. I mentioned earlier I was going to use scrap paper, and now you're going to see me do that here for the leaves. And this I thought actually worked much better than the piece of tape because I could just maneuver it around as I needed to. And because it absorbed ink, so I wasn't worried about ink getting onto the tape and then getting on my fingers or combining with another color of ink or things like that. I came in first with some Sprout to color all of the leaves with those single vein lines in them. And now I am coming in with some Parsley, and I'm coloring in the floral stems as well as their leaves. Next, I have got some Clover, and the Clover I'm using to color the clover. I know, it's so original there, right? Clover for clover. But once I get all of those clover leaves colored in, I'm coming in here with some Artichoke. This is a really pretty green color too. It's not one that I would normally pick, but when it dries back, it's very pretty. After the Artichoke, I decided to come back in with more Parsley, and I'm going to use that Parsley to color the leaves that have multiple veins in them. So here is the reveal on that, and look, in contrast to the first one we did, this one is very, very vibrant. I mentioned earlier when I was doing the final detail layer that I was going to show you two different kinds of mixed media products you can use on the detail layers to bring a lot of shine and sparkle, but very different looks to your cards. On the first card, I used that Arctic Fox Paper Glaze Luxe, and now for this second card, I am using some Stardust Stickles. When you are applying stickles to a card using a stencil, My suggestion is that you go slow and steady. I like to add a little bit of Stickles to my palette knife and then run it over a small section of the stencil. This makes it so that I'm not trying to cover the whole stencil in Stickles at one time. I find when you do that, it tends to get a little bit messy, and it also tends to put down a lot of Stickles, and you really don't need that much in order to get a beautiful glittery look when you are all done. Just be sure anytime you are working with mixed media products that you do wash your stencils as soon as you're done. It's much easier that way. So now everything is nice and dry. I'm going to show you the difference. Do you see how that paper glaze Luxe is opaque versus here with the Stickles you can see through and it's a little more glittery? So it gives you a very different look between the two of them. A nice thing about this stamp set is that it does include a lot of large sentiments. I know sometimes when you have a stamp set, there aren't any large sentiments to go with it. This one does have that, which is great for using with a pigment ink to get a really nice black crisp image, or to do some heat embossing. So I've put down some embossing ink after using my anti-static powder tool, stamped it out, and here I'm using some black embossing powder. I'm gonna melt it all with my heat gun. You could also stamp this with black pigment ink and heat emboss with clear embossing powder. It is a different look, but they are both very pretty with that nice shine that you get. Now we can put together the first card, which, as I had mentioned at the beginning, I'm using the entire stamped image as my whole card front, and it's very pretty. I cut it down and I used a matting layer of the color Lilac that ties in with those lilac flowers. Then I've popped the whole thing up using some foam tape, and I have just folded back the top portion of the foam tape so that way I have some time to move it around on my card before I press everything down. Then I can flip it over, pull off the remaining release tape, and push everything down. That ensures that I get a nice centered piece on my card base and can have a white border all the way around. Now I'm coming in with my sentiment. I have popped that up as well with some foam squares, and I'm putting it right in the center. This card really doesn't need anything else because it has that shine and a little bit of sparkle. And you can see I saved my scraps from when I cut down the panel, and then I used a nice strip on the inside. So now here's where this gets really exciting. Look at this die. This die is going to cut out all of the flowers, all of the leaves, all of those tiny little dots. You know, if I had to go in with separate dies to cut all of these out, honestly, I just wouldn't do it. That's why you don't see me make a lot of cards with a ton of die cuts, because I just find that process, for me anyway, is a little tedious. So if you are that way, then you will love this set. So I took a sentiment from the set, one of the smaller ones, and I stamped it in pigment ink in the center of a white card panel. And now I'm giving it a nice little thin black border all the way around. Off camera, I went ahead and arranged all of those little die cuts, well, most of them anyway, in this beautiful wreath pattern. And once I got it how I liked it, I'm coming in here with some press and seal, and I'm going to pick everything up. So I'm just lightly running my fingers over the tops of everything so that it can connect with the press and seal. And once I get it nice and adhered, I can go ahead and on the left there, create a hinge by pushing down on the press and seal onto my glass mat. Now, when I peel everything up, it's gonna stick onto the press and seal. I can take out that first card panel I was kind of using as just a placeholder, tape my card panel there that's got the stamp and everything so it doesn't move, and now I can come in and adhere everything down to the card panel. The way I like to do this is to work in layers from back to front. So I know anything that's going to be on the bottom of the glued items to my card front, that's what I put glue on first. And then I can just flip the press and seal over, make sure that gets nice and adhered. And then when I peel the press and seal back, those items will stay on the card front. I recommend some type of little pokey tool in order to help you make sure that the items stay on the card as you're peeling up the press and seal. I personally find that this process works really well. You also could put an acrylic block down over the top and wait for each layer that you glue and put down to dry. That does take longer, but it is a little bit easier when you're picking everything back up. So it's kind of up to you. I'm not super patient, so I don't wait very long, and I actually go in with that pokey tool and I find it really easy. The other thing I would recommend is don't do too many pieces at once. So you can see here, I did the little dots with the stickles on them. Then I went in and did one leaf, I did another leaf. And as I go, I can kind of decide, okay, which items do I want to be popped up with little foam squares? Which ones do I want to glue directly? Are there some that I'm not sure about? Do I need to take them off and rearrange them? By going slow like this and doing just a few pieces at a time, it gives you a lot more control in the final outcome of how the product's going to look. So I will often close and open that flap back up many times, and that's what having that hinge there on the left really helps with. Adding the foam squares creates so much beauty and dimension on this style of card. And you can see here I've decided that I'm not real happy with where those two items were placed. So I just pulled them right back off the press and seal and kind of moved them around, checked to make sure I liked where the new placement was. And once I was happy, I could move on with gluing and popping things up with the foam tape. Now I could have just glued that directly to my card base, but I wanted to add a little peak of color at the top and the bottom of the card to tie in to my beautiful wreath colors, those beautiful pinks. So I went ahead and put a strip of pink cardstock across the side of my card base there. And then in order to level everything out so I could glue my card panel on top, I just took a couple of pieces of scrap white cardstock and cut them so that I could glue them on each side of the pink strip. Another way you could do this would be to just cut a couple of small pieces of pink cardstock and actually just kind of tuck them under the top and bottom. I just find this set so exciting because you can create so many different things with all of those gorgeous die cuts. There's the finished card with the beautiful stickles. Here's that first card again in comparison to the second card. I hope you guys picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue bringing you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.